All right, welcome back everybody to the Gall's Deep podcast. We got a few things on our mind that we want to talk about today, and we're just gonna get into it. Um, I have my wife here. She has not seen the incident that Don Lemon was involved in about a week or so ago. So I'm just gonna play this little video, one or two little videos of her, or not of her, of him, and then I want to get her her opinion on the matter. See if it's galling her or not. All right, let's get started. Let me first play this first clip here. It's just about 50 seconds. So here we go.
What do you think of this? I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
okay, but listen, we live there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Yeah. We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me though.
We're here to worship Jesus.
Yes.
That's why we're here.
Yes.
Okay. That's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a Christian?
No one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle what happened?
That's enough of Don Lemon. So basically, he came in with this group of people, either right before or right after a group of what I'm going to call agitators that came in to disrupt this service. And so here is another video of one of the agitators. As you can see here, I believe this guy eventually has been arrested and charges will be brought against him, but I'll have to double check on that. But I'll play just a little bit of this, and Hillary, you can see kind of what this guy was doing inside the church.
All right. Standing with your Somali and Latino communities. Why do I not see you out at Whipple every day protesting this attack on humanity? Where are
so again,
you?
He's protesting the immigration stuff that's happening
in Christians.
Minnesota. Him and a few other people.
Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good! Don't shoot!
So they came to this church saying don't shoot, protesting Renee Good. She was the one that was in that call. The ICE agents shot at. So they're here protesting that in this church. So I'm like, why are you protesting at church over what ICE and Border Patrol and all of them are doing in Minnesota? To me, it just seems out of place. What do you think?
Right. So I think that, we have two issues here, two First Amendment issues. So we have the right to freedom of assembly, the right to freedom of speech. And so the protesters, they are exercising their right to freedom of speech in protesting the actions of ICE agents in Minneapolis. And they are protesting in favor or support of the woman who was shot in her car by an ICE agent during an altercation. So yes, okay. So face value, they are enacting their freedom of speech. They have also chosen to disrupt a peaceful assembly of worshipers, which we have the right to freedom of assembly, and we have the right to assemble with those whom we choose, and also in assembling with those whom we choose, we also have the right to not participate or not allow others into our chosen gatherings and assemblies. Now, I'm sure some people would argue with me on that one, but I do think that it's quite reasonable when agitators, protesters who are entering a church of peaceful worshipers with the purpose of causing a public disturbance. Now they're no longer protesting to show their support for the woman who was killed, to show their support for illegal migrants who are being detained, arrested, and deported by ICE agents. They certainly have the right to do those things. They crossed the line when they decided to enter the church with the purpose of agitating and disturbing the peace in the church and preventing these individuals from carrying out their First Amendment right of freedom of assembly. They are assembling with those whom they choose in order to worship in a way that they choose to worship. So this is a violation of the churchgoer's First Amendment rights, and you no longer have a right to enact one of your rights when it infringes on the rights of another individual. So these individuals, I believe that they are in violation of the law. They all should have been arrested.
I do believe that one guy was, I think, wherever the video went. I do believe this guy was arrested on here. I don't have a good picture of his face, but I think he was arrested, and I think charges will be brought against him. But I don't know about the other guys. And then I know with Don Lemon, I believe they have dropped, I believe the magistrate of Minnesota or the city has dropped it. And you see here, it says Harmeet Dhillon calls out the magistrate judge who allowed Don Lemon to not be charged. So I think he has not been charged, even though he was also there present. And he has a big following. So he's a big influencer. But yet they let him go, at least at the moment. So, I mean, with Don Lemon being involved, do you think he should have been charged too, just like the other guy? I don't know if he was as much of an agitator as the other guy, but he was definitely involved. He was definitely there.
Right. Well, so he was certainly involved, and as a public figure and media personality, he gives credence to and legitimacy to this group that was entering the church to disturb the peace, to protest, to terrorize these churchgoers who, they were not out on the streets trying to interact with protesters or anything like that. They were peacefully assembling inside their church, inside closed doors, in their designated site of worship. And so these interlopers entered their church with Don Lemon. Either, I don't know if he was leading the group or if he was just there to document and film what was going on. But then in the act of being there to document and film what's going on, you can also see he wasn't just standing back and filming and narrating to his cameraman and reporting on what was happening. He is getting into the personal space of the pastor, wanting to ask him questions about whether or not he supports ICE, whether or not he supports these protesters, all of these things. So he crossed that line from being a observer to being a participant when he decided to approach the pastor and continue questioning him in a way. So to put the pastor on the spot, that pastor did not want to engage in that conversation. You can tell by his body language. Yeah. He was pushing himself away from Don Lemon, did not want to be a part of that. He repeatedly mentioned that his obligation was to his churchgoers, to his congregation, to lead them and to protect them and to guide them in their worship of Jesus. And that he wanted no part of that protest. And so as a person who is a public figure, who has been a media personality for a very long time, I wouldn't be able to say exactly how long Don Lemon's been in media. Don Lemon knows better. He's looking for clicks and views. He wants people watching his channel. He wants people listening to him. He's barely been relevant since he left CNN. The only reason he's been relevant is as a laughing stock. And so he's looking for relevance. He's looking to make himself newsworthy and get clicks and views by antagonizing peaceful churchgoers and antagonizing a pastor who does not want a group of protesters interrupting his worship service. And I do have to also say, so yes, Don Lemon should be charged. There are certainly other pathways. Harmeet Dhillon, she is an extremely intelligent woman and a talented attorney. She has won cases, in the Supreme Court. And so, against the federal government, in this instance, she would be,
But I don't know if there's
trying, or she
I
would
don't
be
know if
pressing
federal
charges.
I don't know if federal charges can apply in this case. So that's why the state would have to do it. And I know in
Well,
this case the
when
state
it's
is
a violation
dropping.
of somebody's constitutional
You're right. You're
rights,
right. I
then the
guess
federal government
I guess the
can
federal
press
government could get in.
charges.
Yeah, so that's true.
So they
So
could be involved. And so
you're
the
supposed
thing
to see if
is,
they'll
with this is that Don Lemon's no
press.
longer associated with a large news organization like CNN because they could put legal pressure on a large organization like CNN. And that would, at least get an official apology from Don Lemon and a slap on the hand. Now that he's an independent reporter, I don't know. I will believe it when I see it. But I do also have to add one other thing to this is that
Bring it.
people feel that they can antagonize Christians because they believe that Christians will always turn the other cheek. But what turning the other cheek doesn't mean that you let people walk all over you. And so when it comes to Christians allowing people to walk all over them, I certainly disagree with that. And I certainly think that the individuals in that church should have kicked those protesters out of that church. And certainly if a group of protesters entered a mosque,
Exactly.
there would certainly be legal action against them, immediate legal action against them. If they entered into a synagogue, they probably would have been shot and killed because a lot of synagogues have private security. So this would not happen in places of worship for other religions. And this is just a message to Christians is that that just because Jesus is your shepherd and you are sheep and meant to follow him, that doesn't mean you are meant to be sheep and to be terrorized by wolves. And so it is okay to fight back, and you should fight back. And I think that they should have in this instance and kicked those protesters out of their church.
Man, that's a good take. I definitely agree with you. I guess to play the other side, I think if these protesters I'm assuming it would be okay for them to do what they did if they just stayed, one, not necessarily outside the church, but in the public, wherever the public space is, the church. So that'd be like a sidewalk or whatever. If you're protesting there, I think all that is fine. I think once they even get into the parking lot, I think the parking lot could be
If
considered
it's private property, then they're
'Cause I know there's going to
trespassing.
be a public way where even right there along the street, I don't know the setting up there, so I don't know how
Right.
the church is set up, but because I know a public sidewalk is public sidewalk, and then there's usually like a parking spot or the parking area, and then the church. That's usually, at least around here, that's how they're all set up. But if that was the case, then you can protest all you want out there. I guess if you had the permit, because I know you're supposed to have permits to protest.
Well,
I would imagine they probably did not have a permit, and they just went all in. I would have to look into it a little bit more to see, but yes, I guess all I'd say is yes, people do have a right to protest, but you have to do it in the legal way. And I guess we'll just leave it
And
at
not
that.
with the intention of terrorizing other
Yeah,
people.
correct.
Your protest then becomes terrorism, and their protest is not to, at that point, was no longer to get an idea across. Their purpose at that point was to antagonize a group of
and
Christians.
definitely to intimidate. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. Let us know what you think. What do you think should happen to Don Lemon or the other guys and gals that were in there, along with him? Let us know what you think. Was he in the right to do it, or
Should charges be pressed
Yeah.
against him? Should the other protesters be charged?
Yep.
And, are Christians within their rights to defend themselves when they're being terrorized in their place of worship?
All right, let us know what you think. Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you on the next video.